Before you go to bed tonight, there is something you need to know. Something that is happening to millions of people right now, tonight, while they sleep, completely unaware that their heart is under siege. You have probably done this yourself. Last night, the night before, for years. And your doctor has almost certainly never warned you about it. Not because they don't care, because they don't have time, and because most of them were never trained to see the connection I'm about to show you. I'm Dr. Christian O'Brien. I'm a board-certified physician specializing in metabolic health and preventive medicine, and after 15 years of watching otherwise healthy people wind up in emergency rooms after a night that should have been peaceful, I made a promise to start talking about this openly. Here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. The patients who scare me most are not the ones who smoke 2 packs a day or eat fast food every meal. The patients who scare me most are people like you. Careful people. People who think they are doing things right. People who check their blood pressure, take their medication, read articles about their health online. Because those are the people who are most blindsided when something goes wrong in the night. You have probably seen someone in your life who seemed fine, went to bed fine, and didn't wake up, or woke up to find they couldn't move one side of their body. A father, an uncle, a neighbor, a colleague. And you probably thought, well, that's just how it happens sometimes, quietly, without warning. But I am here to tell you it is not without warning. The warnings are there. They have been there for years. You just didn't know what to look for. Stay with me through this entire video, because what I am going to share with you in the next few minutes could genuinely change the trajectory of your health. The third thing I cover today is the one most cardiologists overlook entirely, and it may be the most important thing you hear this year. I want to start by painting a picture of a patient I see over and over again. He is usually somewhere between 55 and 70. He's not dramatically overweight, maybe 20 or 25 pounds heavier than he'd like to be. He eats reasonably well by most standards. He doesn't smoke. He has a glass of wine most evenings. He's been told his cholesterol is a little high, but nothing alarming. His blood pressure is borderline, the kind his doctor calls something to watch. He sleeps 7 hours. He gets up a couple of times in the night to use the bathroom. He's you, or your husband, or your brother. And here is the thing nobody ever tells him. Every single item in that description, taken together, is quietly building pressure inside his cardiovascular system that accumulates while he sleeps. Not during the day when he's moving around. At night. In the silence, in what everyone assumes is the safest 8 hours of his day. This is the cruel irony of what I call nighttime cardiovascular loading. The body is supposed to repair itself during sleep. Blood pressure is supposed to drop. The heart is supposed to rest. But for tens of millions of Americans and Canadians and Australians over the age of 50, the exact opposite is happening. Their blood pressure does not drop. Their heart does not rest. And nobody ever told them why. Let me explain what is happening inside the body when this goes wrong, because once you understand the mechanism, everything I'm going to tell you next will make complete sense. Your blood pressure follows a natural rhythm across a 24-hour cycle. During the day, it rises to handle the demands of movement, stress, digestion, and activity. At night, it should fall by roughly 10 to 20%. Doctors call this the dipping pattern. Think of it like a factory that powers down overnight. The machinery slows. The pressure in the pipes drops. Everything gets a chance to cool and recover. But in people who are what we call non-dippers, that factory never powers down. The pressure stays high all through the night. The arteries are under constant mechanical stress for 8 hours straight. The heart, instead of resting, is still working against resistance. Imagine running your car engine at highway speed in a closed garage all night, every night, and then wondering why it keeps overheating. That is what a non-dipper's cardiovascular system looks like. Here is what makes this truly frightening. A study published in the journal Hypertension, involving over 3,000 participants monitored with 24-hour blood pressure devices, found that nighttime blood pressure was a far stronger predictor of heart attack and stroke than daytime readings. Not slightly stronger, significantly stronger. The participants with elevated nighttime blood pressure had nearly twice the cardiovascular event rate of those with elevated daytime pressure alone, and the majority of them had no idea their nighttime blood pressure was a problem because it had never been measured. Your standard doctor's appointment blood pressure check, that is a daytime number. It tells your doctor almost nothing about what your arteries are experiencing at 3 in the morning. That is the first revelation, and it matters enormously. Now, what causes this nighttime pressure to stay elevated? This is where most health videos stop. They tell you the problem exists, they scare you a little, and they move on. I want to actually answer the question, because the answer is something you are almost certainly doing tonight. The single most underappreciated driver of non-dipping blood pressure is what you eat in the 4 hours before sleep. I know that sounds almost too simple, but the research behind it is overwhelming, and the mechanism is completely logical once you see it. When you eat a meal heavy in refined carbohydrates, processed foods, or high sodium content in the evening, your body does something predictable. Your blood sugar rises. Your pancreas releases insulin to handle it. Insulin, among its many jobs, signals the kidneys to retain sodium. Retained sodium means more fluid in the bloodstream. More fluid means more pressure in the vessels. More pressure means the heart works harder. And that sequence is still running its course while you are lying in bed, completely unconscious, trusting your body to take care of itself. Think of your bloodstream like a garden hose. When you restrict the valve and add more water to the line, the pressure inside that hose goes up. Every section of that hose is under strain. Your arteries are the hose. That late-night dinner, that bowl of pasta, that handful of crackers and cheese, the salty snack in front of the television, that is you opening the valve at exactly the wrong moment. Researchers at Harvard School of Public Health tracked 1,600 adults over the age of 50 for a period of 6 years and found that those who consumed their highest glycemic load meal in the 3 hours before bedtime had a 34% higher rate of adverse cardiovascular events compared to those who front-loaded their heavier eating earlier in the day. 34%. That is not a rounding error. That is a finding that should be on the front page of every health magazine in the country. And yet, how many of your friends eat their biggest meal at dinner? How many have dessert after dark? How many reach for a snack while watching the evening news? Nearly all of them. Nearly all of us. This is a good moment to pause. If you are finding this valuable, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. I put out content like this every week, and I want to make sure it actually reaches you. Okay, back to what matters. Now let's talk about the second major driver, because this is the one that is almost certainly making the first one worse, and it is hiding inside something most people consider a healthy habit. Sleep itself, specifically the quality of your sleep. You probably know that sleep apnea is a risk factor for heart disease. You've heard that, but what most people don't understand is how specifically it attacks the cardiovascular system during the night, and how common the milder, undiagnosed versions of disordered breathing are in people over 50. Here is what happens during an apnea event, even a brief one. You stop breathing for a few seconds, maybe 10, maybe 30. Your oxygen level drops. Your brain detects the drop and sends an emergency signal. Your body floods with adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. Your blood pressure surges. You partially wake up, just enough to breathe again, and then drift back down. You don't remember any of it in the morning. This can happen dozens of times per hour. Dozens of mini crises, each one triggering an adrenaline surge and a blood pressure spike, all while you believe you are resting peacefully. A review published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, looking at data from over 5,000 patients, found that untreated moderate sleep apnea increased the risk of major adverse cardiac events by 58% over a 10-year period. Among those with both apnea and non-dipping blood pressure, the risk compounded dramatically. These two things together are not additive, they are multiplicative. They amplify each other in ways that make the individual risks look almost manageable by comparison. The most common symptoms that people ignore or normalize: waking up with a headache, feeling unrefreshed even after 7 or 8 hours of sleep, Your partner telling you that you snore heavily or seem to stop breathing, waking up frequently to urinate in the night, a dry mouth in the morning, daytime fatigue that coffee barely touches. Does any of that sound familiar? If it does, please talk to your doctor about a sleep study. A home sleep test is now incredibly accessible, often covered by insurance, and it takes one night to potentially change the entire picture of your cardiovascular risk. Please do not skip that conversation. Now we are getting to the part of this video that I want you to pay very close attention to, because this third piece is the one that ties everything together, and it is the piece most people never hear about. I want to tell you about something called cortisol rhythm disruption. And before your eyes glaze over at the word cortisol, let me give you the 30-second version that will make everything click. Cortisol is your stress hormone, but it is also your wake-up hormone. In a healthy body, cortisol is highest in the morning and lowest at night. That low nighttime cortisol is part of what allows your blood pressure to drop. It is part of what allows your heart to rest. It is part of the repair cycle that sleep is supposed to provide. But here is what breaks that rhythm. Chronic stress, late-night screen exposure to artificial blue light, alcohol consumed in the evening, and, critically, that same late-night eating we discussed earlier. Each of those things tells your adrenal glands, the small organs that sit on top of your kidneys, that it is not actually time to wind down. They are like a signal jammer. They confuse your body's internal clock. And when your cortisol doesn't drop properly at night, neither does your blood pressure. Neither does your heart rate. The whole nighttime repair process is compromised. Researchers at Johns Hopkins studied 845 adults over a period of 4 years, measuring cortisol levels at multiple points across the 24-hour cycle, along with overnight blood pressure profiles. Those whose cortisol failed to reach its normal nighttime low had a 47% higher incidence of what they called adverse nocturnal cardiovascular events, which is a clinical way of saying that bad things happen to their hearts and brains at night. Nearly half again is likely. And here is the part that should give you pause. The 3 biggest nighttime cortisol disruptors in the study were stress-related rumination before bed, screen use within 90 minutes of sleep, and alcohol consumption in the evening. Not late-night pizza, not smoking, not caffeine, though that matters too. The top 3 were things that enormous numbers of careful, health-conscious adults over 50 do every single night without thinking twice. The glass of wine you have to help you relax. The hour of television you watch to unwind. The thoughts about tomorrow's schedule that run through your mind as you lie in the dark. I am not saying these things will kill you. I am saying that, stacked on top of each other, every single night, over years and years, they are doing something measurable to your cardiovascular system while you sleep. And that measurement shows up in emergency rooms. Now, before I give you the exact protocol I walk my own patients through, I want to tell you about a man named Gerald. Gerald was 64 years old when he came to see me. He was a retired electrical engineer, married for 38 years, 3 grandchildren, a man who took his health seriously. He was on a moderate statin for cholesterol and a low-dose blood pressure medication that his cardiologist had prescribed 2 years earlier. His daytime blood pressure was controlled. His cardiologist had told him he was in good shape. Gerald came to me because he was exhausted. Not tired, not sleepy. Exhausted in a way that sleep wasn't fixing. He was waking up with headaches 2 or 3 times a week. His wife had told him his snoring had gotten worse. He was getting up twice most nights to urinate. He thought it was just getting older. I ordered a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor. What it showed was striking. His daytime readings were exactly what his cardiologist had been seeing. Normal. Well controlled. But between midnight and 5 a.m., his blood pressure was averaging 158/96. He was a non-dipper. His nighttime systolic pressure was nearly 30 points higher than his daytime readings. His heart was working hard in the dark, every single night, completely invisible to the standard measures his doctors were relying on. We ran a home sleep study, moderate obstructive sleep apnea, untreated. His cortisol profile was dysregulated, with elevated evening levels consistent with someone whose adrenal rhythm had been running on the wrong clock for years. He was having 2 glasses of red wine most evenings, eating dinner at 8 p.m., and watching television until 11. He thought that was a relaxed, healthy retirement lifestyle. Over the following 6 months, Gerald made 4 changes. He moved his dinner to before 7 p.m. He stopped drinking alcohol on weekdays. He turned off all screens by 9:30. And he started CPAP therapy for the apnea. That is all. No dramatic dietary overhaul, no new medications, 4 targeted changes. At 6 months, his overnight blood pressure averaged 122/78. His headaches were gone. He was sleeping through the night. His wife reported his snoring had essentially stopped. And Gerald told me something I will never forget. He said, "I had no idea I had been exhausted for years. I thought that was just what 64 felt like." It is not what 64 should feel like, and it does not have to feel that way for you. Let me give you the practical framework I use with all of my patients who have these concerns. And as I do, I want to remind you, please work with your own physician as you make any of these changes. This information is meant to empower that conversation, not replace it. The first thing to address is your eating window. Your goal is to finish your last substantial meal at least 3 hours before you go to sleep. If you go to bed at 10, dinner should be done by 7. This single change allows your insulin levels to drop before you lie down, which allows your kidneys to stop retaining fluid, which allows your blood pressure to begin its natural nighttime descent. 3 hours. That is the window the research consistently supports. The second thing is your evening alcohol. I am not going to tell you to stop drinking entirely, though the cardiovascular evidence for eliminating alcohol is strong. What I am asking you to consider is this. Alcohol feels like a relaxant, and in the short term it is. But as your body metabolizes it over the following hours, it triggers a rebound activation of your nervous system. It fragments your sleep architecture. It suppresses deep sleep. It worsens apnea. And it disrupts your overnight cortisol rhythm. If you are going to drink, finish your last drink at least 3 hours before bed and limit yourself to 1 drink on evenings when sleep quality matters. The third thing is screen exposure. I know this is not new advice, but I want to give you the clinical reason it matters for your heart specifically. Blue light from screens tells your brain that it is still afternoon. It suppresses melatonin. But more importantly for cardiovascular risk, it keeps your cortisol from dropping. It keeps your adrenal system subtly activated. An hour of television in a dark room before bed is not neutral for your blood pressure. Please consider trading the last 60 to 90 minutes before sleep for something that does not involve a screen. Read a physical book. Listen to quiet music. Have a genuine conversation. Your arteries will thank you. The fourth thing, and this is one that many of my patients resist, is getting evaluated for sleep-disordered breathing. If you snore regularly, if you wake unrefreshed, if you get up multiple times to urinate, if you have morning headaches, please raise this with your doctor. Ask specifically about a home sleep study. This is not a big ask. It is 1 night. And if apnea is found and treated, the downstream cardiovascular benefit is enormous. A study from the University of Toronto following 420 patients through 3 years of CPAP therapy found a 39% reduction in major adverse cardiovascular events compared to an untreated control group. 39% from treating something you may not have even known you had. The fifth thing, and this one is quieter but real, is what you do with your mind in the last hour of the day. Stress and rumination before sleep are not just annoying. They are physiologically damaging in a cardiovascular sense. Your body cannot distinguish between a real threat and a thought about tomorrow's stress. Both activate the same cortisol response. Both keep that factory floor running when it should be powering down. Whatever practice helps you create a mental boundary between the day and sleep, whether that is prayer, meditation, deep breathing, journaling, a short walk, or simply sitting quietly for 10 minutes without a device, do it consistently. The data on pre-sleep relaxation practices and overnight blood pressure reduction is genuinely compelling. A review in Diabetes Care found that patients with metabolic syndrome who added a consistent 10-minute relaxation practice before bed showed measurable reductions in overnight blood pressure within 8 weeks, without any other changes. Let me bring all of this together for you, because I want you to leave this video with absolute clarity about what matters. Your nighttime blood pressure is a different beast from your daytime blood pressure. It is less visible, less measured, and more predictive of the kind of cardiovascular events that happen without warning in the night or in the early morning hours. The things that drive it up are largely behavioral. Things you do in the evening, things you eat, things you drink, things you watch, and things you fail to treat. None of this requires a new drug. None of it requires a dramatic life overhaul. It requires awareness and a handful of specific, intentional choices about the hours between dinner and sleep. Gerald didn't die in his sleep. He made changes before that became a possibility. And now, 2 years later, he sends me an email on his birthday every year. Last year, he took his grandchildren camping. He told me he kept up with them on the trail. That is what this is about. Not just avoiding what can go wrong, but keeping what matters most. You know something now that most of your friends and neighbors don't know. You know that nighttime is when the heart is most vulnerable and least protected by the standard measures everyone depends on. You know that late eating, evening alcohol, screen exposure, and untreated sleep apnea are not just lifestyle inconveniences. They are cardiovascular risk factors that operate in the dark, literally and figuratively. And you know that each of them is addressable, specifically, practically, starting tonight. Please share this video with someone you love, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who you know goes to bed late after a glass of wine and a bowl of something salty. Not because you want to frighten them, because you care about them waking up tomorrow. That is the most honest reason I can give you. Send it to them right now, before you move on to the next thing. It takes 5 seconds, and it might genuinely matter. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Every week I bring you exactly this kind of information. The things your doctor wishes there was time to tell you. The findings buried in research papers that most people never see. You deserve to have access to this. And next week, we are going to talk about something connected to everything we discussed today. The morning habit that nearly doubles your stroke risk before breakfast, before coffee, before you have even gotten out of bed. You will not want to miss that one. I'm Dr. Christian O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.